Assalamu alaikum. This is Aisha Al-Hajar with the Amani in the Gambia series, Saving Lives Today. And I'm here with Sister Salama Karama. She is one of the Amani affiliates who has a deep heart for reaching women in the Gambia. And I'd like to welcome you, Salama. How are you?
I'm Aisha. Thank you. Yes, so today our topic is going to be practicing good birth consumerism. This is something that AMANI Birth Education focuses on in-depthly. I wanted you to explain to us briefly, what does that mean to practice birth consumerism?
Yeah, that's really huge. And it's kind of, for a lot of people, kind of a new concept. So let's start with the word consumer. To be a consumer is someone who shops for things. You know, if I go to the grocery store and I buy groceries, I am a consumer of the supermarket's items, you know, the groceries. We don't usually think about it this way, but birth truly is a business at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And, you know, each of the providers, each of the hospitals, especially if we talk about private care, they're out to get your business, right? They're a business and they need to, you know, have customers, and that's patients, in order for their business to survive. Government hospitals, similarly, they are in the field of, you know, providing a service. So, you know, it's a service industry, it's a business. So at the end of the day, as mom or families, we need to think carefully about where we're going for our care, who's going to give us best support, going to be on board with whatever it is that we want for our birth, as well as be capable of handling any emergencies that might come up. Now, we talk about birth consumerism. At Amani, we recommend, you know, that if you're going to do private care, that you shop around for the care provider, you know, who's going to best suit your needs, who is going, you know, you're going to feel that you can trust them when the time of birth comes. And you don't do that by going to the first doctor you meet. You shop around to different doctors, you interview them, you ask them questions about how they practice, so that you can make sure that there's a good mesh between you and the care provider. Now, I know a lot of the women in the Gambia, you mentioned to me, are going to government hospitals, and so they will have less option. They'll have an option probably as to which hospital to go to, maybe, if there's more than one within their, you know, driving range, or however they get to the hospital within the range of transportation. So, you know, finding the one that's the most supportive, you know, that they can go to. But once there, it's kind of like, you know, you're in the hands of whoever's on duty. That's how it works when you're in a government system. So whether that be your prenatal visits, which we recommend you to go to your prenatal visits. I know a lot of people opt out of the prenatal visits, but they are important, that we keep in touch with you, and that we make sure the baby's growing the way that it should be, and that your iron levels are where they should be, and we can intervene with supplements if we need to. We talked about iron in one of the other weeks where we spoke. So those prenatal visits are important, and we're watching for signs of things like preeclampsia, which can be deadly for the mother. We do that by looking at your blood pressure. We check for a protein in the urine by doing a urine dipstick. So prenatal appointments are important. But the thing is, you're going to be seeing different doctors at each prenatal, and you're going to probably be seeing a different doctor when you're a nurse and whatever when you're in labor. That doesn't mean that you don't have autonomy of decision over your care. Just because a doctor suggests something or orders something, I don't like the term doctor's orders, by the way, because you're not in prison, right? You're not in prison, you're not in the military. You know, they shouldn't be ordering anything. They should be suggesting, and then you need to be an adult and ask questions. If a doctor's asked you to take a pill, to do a test, or to have a procedure, you need to ask them, what are the benefits and the risks of this? Why are you suggesting it? What are the risks? What are my alternatives, right? And you don't always have, you know, you're the one, if a pill is prescribed, you're the one that puts it in your mouth, you know. You have to understand why you're putting it in your mouth, what are the benefits and the risks. And sometimes things are ordered just as a matter of routine that aren't always best for the mom or for the baby. So it's important.
Alternatives.
And there could be alternatives that are not as you know, dangerous. And sometimes procedures are done as a matter of time. Like, we got to get these moms in and out, in and out, in and out. So, for example, we might break your waters. We might cut your vagina and open up your vagina so the baby comes out faster. Those are not necessarily up to date evidence-based practices. And you have a right to say no to things. So it's important, you know, unless it's an emergency. I mean, if it's life and death emergency, you need to be resuscitated. Your baby needs to be resuscitated. You know, that's a whole different story. You know, we're at the point where we're going in for C-section because the baby's, you know, doing really unwell and we need to get him out quickly. You know, you don't mess with the doctor's job when they're doing those serious things. But the majority of the decisions that are taken during the prenatal and the labor and birth period are optional. You know, you could do them, you could not do them. Sometimes they're good for you, sometimes they're not, but you're never going to know if you don't make decisions for yourself. And you can't make decisions for yourself if you haven't asked questions.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say, like, when you mention shopping around, you know, it's like you can even do that through word of mouth. You can talk to other women that you have met that you know have recently given birth and ask them what was their experiences, you know,
Absolutely.
with a particular doctor or, you know, hospital care clinic. And then when you go there, you can mention, I spoke to someone who recently gave birth here. They said X, Y, and Z. They said
Yeah.
you all allow her to do this. So I think it's going to be, you know, I think we're moving now in a direction where, you know, we talk about nutrition being something that a mom has complete control over.
Right.
And now we're moving into a direction where we need, you know, that two-way street. But
Yes.
sometimes the street is going to be very narrow on one side. And it's
I
like,
agree.
yeah, you know, and so
But you know, if
women,
you go in there, if you get educated and you go in there with a sense of knowledge, they usually will give you a lot more respect, and they'll take the time with you to
exactly.
answer your questions, and they're more likely to give you alternative choices. You know, if you
Yes.
go in there and you don't know anything, they're just going to like dole out the normal stuff. But if you go in there and you're like, look, I want to know what are the risks and the benefits, what are my alternatives, you know, whatever, then at that point they are more likely to give you, you know, the time and respect that you need so that you can make decisions. And I want you to be a decision maker in concert with your care provider. You know, doctors and nurses are busy. You know, they're just like churn them out, churn them out, churn them out. And it's very rare that they stop and actually think about the individual patient and what, and you know, what's best for that particular individual patient, just because they're just on such a conveyor belt and they're so busy. And I can imagine, I've not been to a Gambian hospital, but I can imagine it's probably just swamped. You know,
Yeah.
I imagine that they're busy places, you know, so,
Yeah.
so you know, we need to give some space to our doctors and respect the fact that they are working hard. But at the same time, I don't care that it doesn't fit you just because that's the cookie cutter approach, you know.
Yeah. Mashallah.
So,
And I know like right now.
I was gonna say there's a saying. I don't know if it's true in Gambia, but there's a saying in America: "The squeaky wheel gets the grease," and that means that unless you speak up, nobody's gonna pay attention to you. Unless you speak up, you're gonna be you know in a sea of other faces. You know, I don't want you to be just a number on a chart. You know, so it's really important.
You said something earlier about, you know, a pregnant mom, she's a customer, you know,
Yes.
you are shopping around for a service. So it's the medical professionals, the doctor's job. They're providing a service to you. So when someone's providing the service, you ask questions about it, you know, and not be afraid that if you're asking these questions beforehand, you don't ask them the day of when you're arriving to the hospital to give birth. You start early on when you're receiving your antenatal care, you know,
Which is
begin
why
asking.
it's so important to go to those visits, right? You want to get a feel for what's going on. And if you want something different than the norm, you have to have a conversation with the people who are in charge so that it can be noted in your file that, okay, for this mom, we'll delay cord clamping, which they should be doing anyways. You know, for this mom, we're not going to do episiotomy, which we shouldn't be doing anyways. But if those, I don't know what the routines are in Gambia because I haven't met with any of the care providers at this point. But I'm just imagining what I know of other countries in the region. Probably there's a lot of stuff happening on a routine basis that are not necessarily evidence-based practices, that are done more as a matter of routine because it's quick, you know?
Yeah.
So squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you want something better for you and your baby, you've got to speak up about it. You also said something about talking to other women who have had, what do you call it? Who have had experiences at that particular birth, right? At that particular birthplace, which is good. But the problem is if they're not educated, they might not even know what's good and bad care because they're just accepting whatever's told out. So that is good. But I think one of the things we need to do a better job of as you know, as an organization is just really raising awareness of what is a good birth experience. You know, what are evidence-based practices, you know, so that moms can, when moms start knowing what's evidence-based and demanding evidence-based and coming in with like, this is what the World Health Organization recommends, you know, this is why I want this, you know, then you'll start to see things change. And of course, you know, you're blazing a new trail in Gambia, and it's not easy, but consistency is key. And grassroots efforts are where things change. So, you know, we need to really rally moms together. And, you know, that's what changed, you know, births for the better in the UK. That's what changed births for the better, you know, anywhere around the world, in Canada and Australia. They have great birth practices, but it's because the women stood up and as they say, you know, women of birth, take back your birth. You know, it was the women's movement that made
your birth, back your right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Subhanallah.
exactly.
Subhanallah. And like you said too, also, you know, and going back to sharing experiences, like you said, you know, a lot of stories are being shared about the women who are losing their lives, you know, and it's important to hear these stories.
And Inalahi Rajon, those need to be shared. But
Yes.
we also need to realize that birth in and of itself, Allah built in a lot of safety nets to the childbearing year. And women have to understand that your body was built to do this, and birth is inherently safe, but there are things that you can do to maximize those safety nets. So there, I'm sure for every death story that you're hearing, there's probably more live stories that could be told, right? And for every trauma, I'm sure that there's, that there's also a positive story. So if we only focus on the negative, then we think that's all there is, then we bring fear into our birth. And the problem with fear is fear breeds complications. Fear itself breeds complications, so we have to be careful, and be careful with what we're sharing with pregnant moms. Like, let's talk about all the things that they have control over and power over, and let's give them the education to take those empowering steps. And the women who do that likely will have better outcomes. That's just the way it works. So, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. That's what we're all about.
Yes.
So, knowledge is power. Preparation is key. So.
Absolutely. Alhamdulillah. And, and again, if people are watching, doctors, nurses, family members of doctors and nurses.
We totally invite doctors and nurses to engage with us. We have so many nurses take the AMANI program, and like now I'm in Saudi Arabia, that's where I happen to be at the moment. And I just got a contact yesterday from a hospital. They want me to come, and I did a training for them back in March. They want me to come back in January and do another one. I love working with doctors and nurses. And when I work with them in countries like Gambia, I consider it similar to like maybe when I go to Indonesia, right? I work with a lot of medical workers when I go there, and I like to go maybe a little step further. There's like a general education program, an awareness program that I like to give for all of the moms and the families and, anybody who wants to listen. But when I'm working with a lot of medical practitioners, I also like to talk about some of the things that we can do as medical practitioners to keep birth safe, yet on a normal physiologic path. So, there's a lot that can be done. I call it top down, bottom up, right? We need to work with the medical care providers and raise their awareness of what's evidence-based and what they can be doing to support normal physiology and make normal physiology work for us because it's safer. And then on the bottom end, working with the families, so you get them to meet somewhere in the middle, and then that's where you get a successful and a supportive birth culture, inshallah.
SubhanAllah, inshallah. May Allah, facilitate this for us and for the women of the Gambia, that this education, reach the communities there. And if people have questions, we worked with one mom who, mashallah, a few weeks ago, she gave birth, but she reached out to us and she was asking a lot of questions. And alhamdulillah, she had a really good birth. Hopefully we'll hear from her soon. And we want more women to reach out to us if they have questions that we can help them with.
Absolutely. Share and like. There's somewhere down here, there's a share and a like button. Share and like. Spread this around to other women in your region. And for sure, we have people who are staffing the Facebook Messenger. So reach out. It's the easiest way to reach us with your questions and your comments. We'd love to talk to you. At the end of the day, we're here to support you. That's what it's all about. The women of the Gambia, as well as anywhere else in the world, they deserve to have the knowledge and the empowerment that it takes to have a safe birth. Every woman should go into birth knowing that, this is a life journey and not a death sentence, So at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we're here with you. We want to hear from you. I'm sorry we don't have anybody to translate into any of the local languages today.
Yes, not today, but inshallah, we'll work on that
next week, maybe, inshallah. All right, Salma, thank you so much for your time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.